Would you rather live in peace as Mr. Nobody or go down for all times in a blaze of glory?
Hey, welcome to Attack the Stack. If you like that, try this. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided is an action role-playing game developed by Eidos Montreal and published by Square Enix. It is the fourth game in the Deus Ex series and a sequel to the 2011 game Deus Ex: Human Revolution. Set 2 years after Human Revolution in 2029, the world is divided between normal humans and those with advanced, controversial artificial organs dubbed augmentations. After a violent event known as the Aug Incident, augmented people have been segregated. This prompts heated debate and an era of mechanical apartheid. Main protagonist Adam Jensen, equipped with advanced new augmentations after Human Revolution, is a double agent for the hacker group Juggernaut Collective to expose the Illuminati, which is orchestrating events behind the scenes. The story explores themes of transhumanism and discrimination, using the series' recurring cyberpunk setting and conspiracy theory motif. The gameplay, combining first-person shooter, stealth, and role-playing elements, features exploration and combat in environments connected to the main hub of Prague and quests that grant experience and allow customization of the main character's abilities with praxis kits. Conversations between characters have a variety of responses, with options in conversations and at crucial story points affecting how events play out. Critical reception of Mankind Divided was positive, and the game's narrative, graphics, and gameplay were praised. If you're looking for another AAA cyberpunk RPG, then Mankind Divided is definitely the next best thing. The combat in particular shares a lot of similarities with Cyberpunk. Divine Cybermancy is an action role-playing first-person shooter game developed by Strum On Studio and built using Valve's Source Engine. It is a cyberpunk-themed game based on the tabletop role-playing game e.y.e, developed by Strum On Studio. As a member of the strange secret society I, you wake up after a fight in which your fellow teammates were killed. I, an armed branch of the Secreta Secretorum, is attempting a coup against the all-powerful Federation, a coalition of several worlds and planets that rule with an iron fist. You are thrust into the middle of a fratricidal war fraught with political conspiracies and quests for power in which different groups and megacorporations are implicated. The game features 25 weapons, different shooting modes, dynamic precision, drilling shots, iron sighting, extended zoom, and 9 psi powers. In addition, there are primary and secondary missions in dynamic environments and non-linear level progression, random NPC spawn type, and appearance for replayability. The game also includes a psychological and mental trauma management mechanic and a hacking system. Death doesn't penalize players, so there's no need to restart missions. All of this in an open level without reloading. As an added bonus, the multiplayer co-op modes directly influence solo play and vice versa. An oldie, but a goodie. Grand Theft Auto V is an action-adventure game developed by Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games. Set within the fictional state of San Andreas, based on Southern California, the single-player story follows 3 protagonists: retired bank robber Michael DeSanta, street gangster Franklin Clinton, and drug dealer and arms smuggler Trevor Phillips, and their efforts to commit heists while under pressure from a corrupt government agency and powerful criminals. The open-world design lets players freely roam San Andreas' open countryside in the fictional city of Los Santos, based on Los Angeles. The game is played from either a third-person or first-person perspective, and its world is navigated on foot and by vehicle. Players control the 3 lead protagonists throughout single-player and switch among them, both during and outside missions. The story is centered on the heist sequences, and many missions involve shooting and driving gameplay. A wanted system governs the aggression of law enforcement response to players who commit crimes. It received widespread critical acclaim, with praise directed at its multiple protagonist design, open world, presentation, and gameplay. Considered one of 7th and 8th generation console gaming's most significant titles and among the best video games ever made, it won year-end accolades including Game of the Year awards from several gaming publications. It is the second best-selling video game of all time with over 140 million copies shipped, and one of the most financially successful entertainment products of all time, with about $6 billion in worldwide revenue. If you like role-playing a criminal making your way up in the streets, like you do in Cyberpunk, but you prefer a more streamlined action experience for your games, then Grand Theft Auto is your jam, but you probably already know that. Fallout 4 is an action role-playing game developed by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. The game is set within an open-world post-apocalyptic environment that encompasses the city of Boston and the surrounding Massachusetts region known as the Commonwealth. It makes use of a number of local landmarks including Bunker Hill, Fort Independence, and Old North Bridge near Concord as the bridge out of Sanctuary Hills. The main story takes place in the year 2287, 10 years after the events of Fallout 3 and 210 years after the Great War, which caused catastrophic nuclear devastation across the United States. The player assumes control of a character referred to as the Sole Survivor, who emerges from a long-term cryogenic stasis in Vault 111, an underground nuclear fallout shelter. After witnessing the murder of their spouse and kidnapping of their son, the Sole Survivor ventures out into the Commonwealth to search for their missing child. The player explores the game's dilapidated world, completes various quests, helps out factions, and acquires experience points to level up and increase the abilities of their character. New features to the series include the ability to develop and manage settlements and an extensive crafting system where materials scavenged from the environment can be used to craft drugs and explosives, upgrade weapons and armor, and construct, furnish, and improve settlements. Fallout 4 also marks the first game in the series to feature full voice acting for the protagonist. Fallout 4 received positive reviews from critics, with many praising the world depth, player freedom, overall amount of content, crafting, and soundtrack. The game also received numerous accolades from various gaming publications and award events, including the respective awards for Game of the Year and Best Game at the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences and British Academy Games Awards. Of all the games on the list, Fallout 4 is definitely the most mechanically similar to Cyberpunk 2077, so much so that if they did make a spin-off to Fallout, it would basically just be Cyberpunk 2077. Watch Dogs Legion is an action-adventure game published by Ubisoft and developed by its Toronto studio. It is the third installment in the Watch Dogs series and the sequel to Watch Dogs 2. Set within a fictionalized representation of a future dystopian London, the game's story focuses on the hacker group DedSec as they seek to clear their names for a series of bombings they have been framed for, as well as liberate London's citizens from the control of Albion, an oppressive private military company which turned the city into a surveillance state following the bombings. While the core gameplay is similar to its predecessors, consisting of a combination of shooting, driving, stealth, and hacking puzzles, Legion introduces a multiple playable character system, allowing players to recruit virtually any NPC found in the game's world. Yeah, each playable character has their own unique skills and backgrounds, and can be lost permanently if players enable the option of permadeath before starting the new game. There are multiple ways to complete missions, depending on which playable character is selected. A 4-player cooperative multiplayer will be added later in 2021, allowing players to team up to complete missions or explore London together.
Nobody threatens my planet.
Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is a first-person shooter game developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. It is a standalone expansion to Far Cry 3, meaning players do not need the original game to play it, and it is the 8th overall installment in the Far Cry franchise. Blood Dragon, a parody of 1980s action films, cartoons, and video games, takes place on a retro-futuristic open-world island with players assuming the action role of military cyborg Sergeant Rex Power Colt. The game takes place in an open world with the same vehicles from Far Cry 3. The game uses the same engine and general mechanics but is streamlined to provide a more linear experience. The skill tree, instead of a chosen path down 3 ways of the animal, is replaced with a simpler leveling system that automatically unlocks benefits. The crafting is removed completely. Players will find themselves using high-powered explosives, heavily modified firearms, and a large knife in order to kill their way through the main missions. Side missions involve liberating garrisons, killing rare animals, and saving hostages. Stealth is rewarded with extra cyber points, the equivalent of experience points. The game also includes many hidden collectibles which, when found, unlock helpful rewards to assist with play. The game received generally positive reviews upon release.
Shitballs! This game is great!
Play the game, and hopefully you'll get it. Moving on.
Soon we'll climb back up to Dharma City and set humanity back on its path.
Ghostrunner is a cyberpunk action game developed by Polish development studio One More Level and co-published by All In Games and 505 Games. Ghostrunner is co-produced by 3D Realms and co-developed by Slipgate Ironworks. As Jack the Ghostrunner, the player must traverse dangerous environments by dashing, jumping, wall running, and grappling. The player will also encounter enemies which must be handled carefully, as both enemies and the player can be killed in one hit. Jack can use a mechanic called Sensory Boost, allowing him to slow down time and dodge and deflect bullets in midair. As the player progresses through the story, they will unlock new abilities and upgrades which they can apply using tetramino-like pieces on a grid system. This one's for all of you who prefer to use the melee weapons in Cyberpunk. But be warned, this game is not as forgiving in combat or traversal as Cyberpunk is.
The city moves real fast, and you got to move with it.
Cloudpunk is an adventure game developed by Ion Lands and published by Maple Whispering Limited. The game is set in the future and features science fiction and cyberpunk elements. The player takes control of Rainia, a new delivery driver for the illegal company Cloudpunk. The player has to maneuver a Hova, a flying car, through a cyberpunk city, collecting and delivering packages as well as passengers. It is also possible to park the car on certain parking spaces and explore parts of the city by foot. During some missions, the player can make decisions that influence the outcome and lead to different dialogues with the characters. Furthermore, the player can collect optional story items that are scattered throughout the city to unlock additional side quests and stories. It is possible to upgrade the Hova to increase the speed and damage control, as well as buy items for Rainia's apartment to decorate it. If you spent dozens of hours running around Night City just taking in the sights like it felt like I did, and you're looking for another cyberpunk world to just absorb yourself into, this just might be your jam.
I shall smile to the infinite delight and mystery of it.
Observer is a psychological horror game played from a first-person perspective developed by Bloober Team and published by Aspyr. An upgraded and expanded version called Observer System Redux was also released for Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5. It stars Rutger Hauer, who was also in Blade Runner, one of the primary influences. Observer follows Daniel Lazarski, a detective known as an observer who can hack people's minds as a method of interrogation. Equipped with augmented vision split into electromagnetic vision, which scans for electronic devices, and biovision, which scans for biological evidence, he is able to analyze and highlight certain objects in the environment. Objects can be interacted with and examined, while dialogue trees are used for speaking with non-player characters. Nanophage cards, patient records, radio-controlled cars, and roses serve as collectibles. A minigame called With Fire and Sword Spiders is accessed through computer terminals, which can also read documents. Observer received generally favorable reviews. Critics praised the world design, visual effects, and hacking sequences. I think I've mentioned it here before, but I absolutely love this game. In fact, it reminds me a lot of something like Blade Runner, where I don't think critics quite appreciated it when it came out, but each year that goes past, I feel like more and more people fall in love with it. Anyways, if you love the horror genre or even suspense thrillers, and you're looking for something like that set in a cyberpunk world, play this immediately. You'll thank me later.
Look, I know we haven't spoken in a while, but I need your help.
Shadowrun Hong Kong is a turn-based tactical role-playing game set in the Shadowrun universe. It was developed and published by Harebrained Schemes, who previously developed Shadowrun Returns and its standalone expansion, Shadowrun Dragonfall Director's Cut. It includes a new single-player campaign and also shipped with a level editor that lets players create their own Shadowrun campaigns and share them with other players. The game features isometric graphics with 3D models for characters. Combat is turn-based, with the player controlling the actions of their team, followed by the enemies taking their actions. Characters start with a base of 2 AP per turn, but can temporarily gain or lose AP based on abilities, spells, or items used on them. AP is used on such actions as moving, attacking an enemy, reloading a firearm, or using a spell or item. Any AP that is not used by the end of the player's turn is forfeited. The game was developed with an improved version of the engine used with Shadowrun Returns and Dragonfall. An extended edition featuring a new campaign, a developer commentary, and bug fixes for the original game was also released. The update was released for free for everybody who owned the original game. Blade Runner is a science fiction film directed by Ridley Scott and written by Hampton Fancher and David Peoples. It is loosely based on Philip K. Dick's novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The film is set in a dystopian future Los Angeles of 2019 in which synthetic humans known as replicants are bioengineered by the powerful Tyrell Corporation to work at space colonies. When a fugitive group of advanced replicants led by Roy Batty escapes back to Earth, burnt-out cop Rick Deckard reluctantly agrees to hunt them down. After its initial release was met with a lukewarm reception by critics, it later became an acclaimed cult film regarded as one of the all-time best science fiction films. Hailed for its production design depicting a decaying future, Blade Runner is a leading example of neo-noir cinema. The film has influenced many science fiction films, video games, anime, and television series. It brought the work of Philip K. Dick to the attention of Hollywood, and several later big-budget films were based on his work, such as Total Recall, Minority Report, and A Scanner Darkly. The film was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. The final cut version of the film is a 25th anniversary digitally remastered version. This is the only version over which Ridley Scott retained artistic control, so make sure to watch that version. When it comes to Cyberpunk, this is the GOAT. If you're a Cyberpunk fan, then I need not tell you. But if Cyberpunk 2077 has brought you into the genre, make sure to check this one out. Cyberpunk and most other modern day Cyberpunk media owes much to this film. It's simply required viewing for the genre, and personally one of my all-time favorite movies.
The net is vast and infinite.
Ghost in the Shell is a Japanese cyberpunk media franchise based on the seinen manga series of the same name, written and illustrated by Masamune Shiro. The manga told the story of the fictional counter-cyber-terrorist organization Public Security Section 9, led by protagonist Major Motoko Kusanagi, and is set in mid-21st century Japan. Animation studio Production IG has produced several anime adaptations of the series. These include the anime film of the same name and its sequel, Ghost in the Shell 2: Innocence, the television series Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, and its follow-up Ghost in the Shell SAC 2045, and the Ghost in the Shell Arise original video animation series. Ghost in the Shell is another GOAT in the genre, and like Blade Runner, it has inspired other media for decades. The anime's comparison to Cyberpunk 2077 is varied, but in my opinion, mostly regarding themes of identity, consciousness, and a virtual world in cyberspace. This is another must-watch. Even if you don't normally watch anime, Ghost in the Shell is one you should definitely check out.
Negotiations over.
Dread is a science fiction action film directed by Pete Travis and written and produced by Alex Garland. It is based on the 2000 AD comic strip Judge Dredd and its eponymous character created by John Wagner and Carlos Esqueda. Carl Urban stars as Judge Dredd, a law enforcer given the power of judge, jury, and executioner in a vast, dystopic metropolis called Mega City 1 that lies in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Dredd and his apprentice partner, Judge Anderson, are forced to bring order to a 200-story high-rise block of flats and deal with its resident drug lord, Mama. Critics were generally positive about the film's visual effects, casting, and action. The film has since been recognized as a cult classic. When it comes to cyberpunk films, he is the law. This film is badass and is endlessly rewatchable. I highly recommend it.
Input the data into the brain of a human courier, like Johnny Mnemonic.
Hit me.
Johnny Mnemonic is a Canadian-American cyberpunk action thriller film directed by Robert Longo in his directorial debut. The film is based on the story of the same name by William Gibson. Keanu Reeves plays the titular character, a man with a cybernetic brain implant designed to store information. The film portrays Gibson's dystopian view of the future with the world dominated by megacorporations and with strong East Asian influences. Sounds a bit familiar, right? Okay, I have to say up front that this film has not aged as well as the others on this list, but if you're into the subgenre of cyberpunk that I have personally coined the term for, cringe punk, then this might just be for you. Then get your popcorn and chuckles ready. You'll have a good time.
Mr. Kovacs.
I didn't ask you to bring me back into this world.
Altered Carbon is an American cyberpunk television series created by Laeta Kalogridis and is based on the 2002 novel of the same title by English author Richard K. Morgan. In a world where consciousness can be transferred to different bodies, Takeshi Kovacs, a former soldier turned investigator, must solve a murder. The series takes place over 360 years in the future, with most episodes of the first season set in the year 2384 in a futuristic metropolis known as Bay City. In the future, a person's memories and consciousness are recorded onto a disc-shaped device called a cortical stack, which is implanted in the vertebrae at the back of the neck. Physical human or synthetic bodies are called sleeves, and stacks can be transferred to new bodies after death, but a person can still be killed if their stack is destroyed or there is no backup. Only the wealthiest, known as meths, in reference to Methuselah, have the means to change bodies through clones and remote storage of their consciousness in satellites, so they never have to die of old age before being re-sleeved. Takeshi Kovacs, a political operative with mercenary skills, is the sole surviving soldier of the Envoys, a rebel group defeated in an uprising against the New World Order. In the first season, set 250 years after the Envoys are destroyed, his stack is pulled out of prison by 300-year-old meth Lawrence Bancroft. one of the wealthiest men in the settled worlds. Bancroft offers him the chance to solve a murder, Bancroft's own, to get a new shot at life. This series was short-lived on Netflix, but it's still worth checking out the 2 seasons available. It's got one of the highest production values in TV in recent memory, so make sure you check it out if you'd like them to make more stuff like this. If you're looking for a few more Cyberpunk movies to jack into, Cypher, Strange Days, and Elysium are a few notable mentions. Check those out too. Enjoy! If you liked the video or it helped you out, click the thumbs up button below. It really helps us out. If you think it could help others, share it. Of course, subscribe for more content like this and more. And if you have anything to add to our list, feel free to comment below. Thanks for watching, and keep attacking.